was looking for a new project to work on before the holidays, and I was scrolling on Instagram one day and this video came up talking about a digital advent calendar that you can make with personalized photos and messages for your friends and family. I really like this idea, and I have been learning React and Firebase, so I thought this was a perfect opportunity to put these skill sets to use. I wanted to make a really simple website where people can come on and make their own personalized digital advent calendar and easily send it to their friends who can open them. I had a pretty short time frame for this project because I wanted to get it out before December 1st, so I had about a week from when I started building this. I wanted people to have the chance to create their own calendars and send it out before the holiday season officially started. I know I'm not the most artistic person, but I really tried my best with the design of this website. I probably spent half of my time just on the design and the layout alone. My original idea for the website was to have each day in the calendar as a present that people can open, and I wanted it to be inside of a big container, and my first idea was a candy, so I just kind of went with it. I knew I wanted the website to look very clean and simple, so my art had to be very clean line art. But I also can't draw to save my life, so I did a quick Google search and found this website called recraft.ai that generates drawings for you. I prompted it by saying I wanted a simple 2D image of a Christmas present, and it basically gave me a lot of different variations, and I just chose the ones that I liked the best. And then I imported them into Figma as an SVG, played around with the color and the line size until I was satisfied with the images. I knew in my head that I wanted to use a grid system when I was building this out in CSS. I just put like a grid in Figma and then played around with the different sizes of the present boxes until I was happy with how they were laid out. Once I was happy with the design, I needed to figure out how my website was going to flow. The basic flow I had in my head was the user comes onto this website, they see a blank calendar, and they have someone in mind that they want to send this to. They go day by day and upload an image and a message to each of the days until they're satisfied with how the calendar looks. Then they click share calendar, which generates a personalized link that they can send to their friends. And when their friends click on that link, it leads them to a display page where they can see each of the images and the messages. One issue I struggled with was how to track the calendar to the user because each user can make multiple calendars. I settled on using session ID to generate a unique ID for each calendar, so that way people can make multiple for different people. This is definitely not perfect because if the user accidentally exits out of the tab, they lose track of their progress since the session restarts. The other option I had was to set up authentication and make everyone log in before they create their calendars, but I felt like this is a very simple website and it felt overkill to set up authentication. I chose to use React for the front end for this project because it's a framework that I recently learned and it works very seamlessly with Firebase, which is my backend. I started with the main page where I went off of my Figma design and used a grid system to build out the different presents. I did this using plain CSS, mostly because I don't know a CSS framework and plain CSS is what I'm most comfortable with. This part wasn't too bad since ChatGPT is pretty good at producing good code. For example, I wanted each of the days of the calendar to pop up as a lightbox, and ChatGPT gave me perfectly working code. I didn't need to edit. I went on to build the share page, which I kept very simple with just 2 buttons for the copy link and edit calendar. One thing I did struggle with was figuring out how to make the image display look good for each of the calendar days. I basically just trial and error CSS until it looked good enough. For my backend, I went with Google Firebase. It's super easy to set up for database and image storage. You create a new project and then add your credentials into your React project like this, and read in the necessary packages into each of your index files. You can use functions like getDoc and setDoc to read and write the calendar to and from your database. Whenever the user interacts with a new calendar, I create a new document in the database which keeps track of each of the days within that calendar. You can't store image files in the database, so you have to set up a Google storage and store the images in there. The nice thing about Firebase is that it automatically generates a link to your database that points that image in storage, so you don't have to manage that yourself. Everything is also free for very basic websites, so I don't have to pay anything for any of these services. I also chose to use Firebase as my hosting platform because it's free and it's nice to have everything in one place, but you could easily use other free services like GitHub Pages or Vercel. Even though I was able to build this website in a week, which is pretty insane, I did have my fair share of issues. I am not very happy with the overall design, even though I spent like half of my week perfecting it. I think it looks a little bland, and I tried to add in other colors, but it just made it look tacky, so I just went with the most basic version. I struggled with formatting the design to different screen sizes, especially on mobile, which I decided to completely change the design for to be a rectangle instead of a candy shape. That was just the easiest to implement. And even still on mobile view, the shapes of the presents are distorted because of the way I shaped the assets before I uploaded them. Something else I wanted to implement was a way to remind the person gifted the advent calendar to come back to the site every day to open a new present. That was the original idea behind advent calendars, and I really wanted that to be a part of this website, but I just didn't have enough time to implement this, and I also didn't want to be like a harassment to the person that was being gifted the site in case they don't like want that many emails or they just wanted to open all the presents in one day. Another small issue I had was that there's a significant lag between when the user opens the present to when the image is shown. I think it has something to do with the retrieval process from Firebase, but I'm not sure how to fix that. Overall, I'm really happy with the way that this website has turned out. I only spent a week on it, from the initial Figma design to deploying it on Firebase. Thank you to everyone who saw my TikToks and Reels and tried out my website. I think there were actually around 150 calendars made, which proves to me that this idea was at least interesting enough for people to check out, and the product was usable enough for people to make full calendars and send it to their friends. This was my first big project I put out onto the internet, and it was definitely a bit scary to be so vulnerable. I'm happy that some people found it useful and at least were willing to test it out. I have a few other projects that I want to build in the next few weeks, so stay tuned for updates.